did want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship today and rethinking an industry and some of the things that we did to rethink an industry. And this really came out of this right here. I was on the cover of Inc. magazine, been in a lot of magazines, but I was on the cover of Inc. magazine. They made me their Entrepreneur of the Year. Now that's a pretty big deal, and in fact, you don't get to just sort of become Entrepreneur of the Year. The first thing that struck me is when I was on the cover is that all of a sudden I started hearing from girls that I hadn't heard from since high school, and they said, wow, you're really hot on this cover. Now, what I realized, of course, at that point is they only meant on the cover, not in real life, you see, and that was really disturbing. But there was a lot that happened on this cover. Of course, you don't get to write the cover. Startup insanity, that's exactly true. If you want to do a startup, it's totally insane. Heck yes, sometimes you need to micromanage. 10 rules for a happy entrepreneurial marriage. Let me give you rule number 1. Do not start a company and be married. This is not a good thing, right? Very, very difficult thing to do. But I think for me, the most interesting thing was this headline. I didn't write the headline. They did. How to build a great company even in the worst of times. And then people started coming up to me and saying, well, how do you build a great company? I said, I don't know. They put me on the cover. I have no idea. So I started to think about it and said, I better have a better answer than that. So the first thing that I thought about was, well, how did we identify a problem? Because you have to identify a problem if you're going to have a great company. For us, it was climate change. That was our problem. We said there is climate change, it is happening, CO2 is rising, and I'm not trying to make a political statement here, I'm just saying this is what we found. And I actually went out and plotted the actual data and looked at this and looked at the actual Arctic ice melt, which is melting an awful lot faster than the models show. It'll probably be melted by 2017 or 2018 instead of like 2100. So all of this is happening a lot faster. The oceans are going to rise if we're not careful. You know, they're not going to rise 3 or 4 feet, but sometime, hundreds of years from now, they could be 75, 100, 200 feet. We think that's actually pretty high. We don't think that Florida will be gone. That's not good, because I like Miami Beach myself. So when you look at this, you say, where are these fossil fuels? What are we using? Well, our worldwide energy sources, you know what's really scary about this? Wind and solar, after so many years of work, are still less than 1% of the energy sources that we use on Earth today. So in fact, the majority is fossil fuels, and then you look and you say, wow, did you know that all of our energy basically goes into buildings? Not cars. People think it's cars. Only 9% is passenger cars, 40% is operating buildings like this. So why don't we aggressively do something about that? And this is where there's opportunity. Opportunity abounds in sustainability, both on the supply side, and everybody here thinks solar and wind and biofuels, yes, but look at all the things we can do in energy efficiency, from engines to motors to lighting to buildings. So that was our problem. And so then we went out and we said, let's make some products to address this. So maybe to build a great company, you got to provide great solutions that solve real problems. And so we did. We invented different kinds of drywall products, and we invented different kinds of window and glass products, and we invented all kinds of software to make buildings better, and that was maybe these great products. And while we did that, the old industry was yelling at me, saying, what are you doing invading our space? Silicon Valley, get out of here. You're crazy. Get out of our space. So you have to live with that if you're going to invent products. But maybe it's not just great products, and maybe it's not finding a problem, but maybe it's the awards, because when you win awards, you're getting recognition by peers, and recognition by peers is very important as you build a company. So we've got years of award-winning products. We're very fortunate to have won so many different awards, and maybe that's what's important, and that's what's the most important about building a great company. But maybe it's the people. And in fact, you know, this is a very good example of a person that I hired. His name was Ed. He was our first VP of sales. It didn't really work out very well.
Hello. I'm Mr. Ed.
He reminded me of this horse. You see, the horse used to talk, yes.
A horse
How many
is a
people
horse,
remember this
course,
show?
of course.
No one in the audience
talk
that's
to a
excellent.
horse,
Of course you
course.
don't.
That
It
is,
was
of
on in like
course, unless the
1954.
horse is the
They used to make his
famous
lip
Mr.
move to talk with a little fishing line. It's horrible. Today that'd be illegal, but that's what they did. So you do have to hire the right people for the job. But maybe it's not that. Maybe it's vision. And you had to have a vision of the future for 5, 10, 20 years out. So we had a vision of what buildings could be, not just this year, but in the coming years, and how we could make better buildings, and how we could make them more efficient, and how we could make them more comfortable, etc. That's an odd one. Yes, I know. I had to put that up there, though. Or but maybe it's having great customers, and that's what helps build a great company when you're building these companies, because amazing reference clients absolutely help a lot. And here's some of our customers. Obviously, it's fun to do business in the North Pole and Air and Space Museums. That's the New York Stock Exchange. We just finished all the glass there. And everyone recognized that building? It's the Empire State Building. We changed all 5,614 windows, 26,000 panes of glass, built a factory on the 5th floor, did it all in 6 months, saved $410,000 a year in energy. And then I thought, how about disruptive innovation? Because you've got to disrupt with innovation, and you've got to do it in a way that you're not going to be afraid, because innovation means you're going to take risk. Now, the innovator of our time was clearly Steve Jobs, without question. Without question. Because Steve came back and said, I can actually change the way we do music. We can change the way we have operating systems on these music devices. We can make that eventually into a phone, and eventually make all that into an iPad. And each time he disrupted entire industries by doing that, he had the ability to take that risk and was willing to take the risk. The problem in many companies today is innovation doesn't come with risk. They don't want to take the risk. So here's Kleenex, for example, right? A tissue. Let's say we were in a big company and we wanted to innovate around tissues. You know what we do? We gather lots and lots of people around, product marketing and salespeople and everything else. And after a year of work, we'd make this white tissue, pink tissue. Yes. And do you think that would be innovative? Maybe a little. Is it disruptive? Probably not. Probably not. Now, one way to think outside the box, if you wanted to take the risk in that room, would be to raise your hand and say, we're not in the tissue business. We're in the nose cleaning business. If we want to clean your nose, what we want to do is invent a machine that's going to suck the snot out of your nose for the next 30 days. You see, I've personally invented this machine. Now, if anyone goes out and makes one of these machines, I'm going to find you. Let's get the final piece. There you go. Now you see how the entire thing absolutely works. So we continue to disruptively innovate around products that, like this, that would stop noise coming through walls, or windows that save, so much energy. They're 2 and 3 and 4 times better than dual pane windows, and fiberglass curtain walls that have more insulative qualities, and software that manages schools, manages commercial buildings, and actually saves energy in the existing systems you have, 10%, 20%, 30% of the energy, and makes them more comfortable and more valuable at the same time. But maybe it was disruptive marketing. And one of the things we found over the last several years is you got to own the conversation, and it's all about the web. Forget print, forget the old ways. Or maybe it's what we did was right. Maybe we wanted to do what was right, because people take notice when you care. And for us, we rescued a plant in Chicago. In fact, we rescued several plants just a few years ago when there were no jobs. And in this particular plant, this really quick story, the owner stole equipment. He stole all the equipment, leaving the workers out of work. And when he left the workers out of work, they did a sit-in for the first time in about 30 or 40 years in this country. And they said, we want our 60 days of severance pay. The banks owned the equipment. The banks were getting money and bailout money from the federal government, so they wanted their money. Lots of famous people obviously showed up. You recognize the faces. That's the child of one of the union workers. And the net result of this was they went and protested in front of Bank of America, and eventually they said, look, we want our money. You bailed out the banks, and they got their money. They got their 60 days of severance pay. However, the sad part was the factory was empty, so they were out of jobs. So I picked up the phone, and in fact, in this particular case, I found the oldest phone I could find. There it is, on December 17th, 2008. I picked up the phone, called the union, and said, I'd like to partner with you and buy that plant back. And so we bought the plant, and we reopened the plant, and we hired all the workers back. And that's what happens when you do things right. And so the workers came back. The vice president came to visit, which was a much better outcome. Books were written about this particular saving of a plant. Michael Moore showed up to feature us in his movie, and the owner went to jail. The old owner went to jail. So that seems like a fitting outcome as well. I didn't go to jail. But I did get to listen to his jokes all day. It was great. So here's my kids, and one of the reasons I'm focused on climate change is because in 2040 or 2050, I want them to look back at me and say, when Dad found out, he did the best he could. He did something that impacted the environment. And I'm hoping that you will actually give some thought to do the same. Now, if you're going to go out and build a company, I've just given you A through I of possible reasons you could build a great company, possible ways you could build a great company. Just yell out which one you think is the most important. I see products. I hear all of them. I hear identify a problem. I heard customers. Yes. Well, unfortunately, it was none of the above. So thank you very much. I really need to, no, you're not going to let me go with that. In actually thinking about it, of course, all of those are very important. But the most important thing, I think, in our business, and I hope in every business, is that you inspire. Is that you inspire your employees, you inspire your partners, you inspire your vendors, you inspire your customers, and hopefully, I've inspired you today to get up and do something about this too. Thank you so much.